Okie doke. Okay, so this video, I want to talk about two things really. I want to discuss making thin pieces such as wings, hat brims, or things of that nature. And the second thing is when we're dealing with sculptures that are complex like this. And I don't mean complex in the detail or sense like the drapery or whatnot. I mean that the arms are crossed. We have an opening, an opening, an opening, 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 and then with the wings, I'm going to have a second wing come up here. It will look more like this, going upward. How to approach this, you know? It's not easy as a mold maker to be handed a piece like this and to say, I need you to make a mold of this and we're not going to cut it apart. That's ridiculous. I would refuse the job without being able to cut it up. So, going into this knowing that this is going to be cut up, I've made it so that it can be disassembled. This part I'm going to fill in more. As I fill this in more, I'm going to put drapery across here. So this will actually, I sculpt the form and then I can lay the drapery over it and decide what to do at that point. I mean, some of these, look at this. This gets so complicated. But before I go any further, let's just touch down on the wing. This paper plate, I've taken just simple scissors, and I knew that this needed a support. Let me just double back here. So here's the idea. I drew a wing. I looked at my reference material. I decided on the wing that I thought would be best for what I wanted to do. And I drew it on paper. So I drew it on paper. And it was pretty long. It looked pretty long. I took a very hard piece of steel wire and I did just a general shape right here. It stops here, and then I got armature wire. If I wanted to, I could continue to do this hard steel wire here. I don't know, you could probably use baling wire, something that's just going to be rigid. This is armature wire. It's much more soft. You can see how easily I can bend that right there. Now I'm going to have to straighten that out. Get the desired shape. I laid it on here and then just taped it down and then manipulated the wire to get the shape I want. And that's part of your job as a sculptor, is to figure out the shape that you want. You know, it's no different than this. And because I could squeeze it in the middle and this would flex, I took a cardboard plate and I cut a piece and then I cut a piece and I laid it on the curve, taped it down, flipped it over. You can see right through here that paper plate because it's rigid enough. It's like cardstock. And then I taped that down and that keeps it from flexing in easily. You know, you have to give it some force. So the next step with this armature is to smear the clay on here. And then I can begin to do my feather work or whatever I want to do. I can kind of carve that into the surface. But I dogleg this. And then that way when I put it in her scapula, where I deemed appropriate, it can go in at the same distance every time. Now I just shoved it into the clay. There's no female end in there for that wire to sit in. It's up to you. If you want to incorporate some brass tubing and do that, that's fine. This armature is a telescoping armature originally, and I've altered it. I've pretty much made it so these arms are wire, like a twisted wire, and then I've just plugged them into the body. Once I had the rib cage and the basic form set up, I just put these arms in there. So, and the head the same way, it's just, it goes in. So her head and arms were easily removed in the beginning to get them the way that I wanted them. And what this all means, okay, here's what it comes down to. This is Alfred Gilbert, Sir Alfred Gilbert to you. Just kidding. He's British. He's deceased. He has done a lot of works that you might see publicly in London. And he's in private collections and so forth anyway. You can see here how this piece is pretty complicated. And what he's done is broken this figure down into pieces. This makes a much more successful casting. And this lends to the new sculpture genre. The new sculpture genre being that these hands and face were made of other materials like marble and then incorporated into a bronze casting. It's a pretty cool style. Check it out, early 1900s. So these small pieces, I don't know if you can see that well. I'll try to zoom in here. I'll zoom in the camera. So these pieces here would all be set on like a tree or a strip. So you have your wax bar. Pretend this is a wax bar. And all these little pieces would be set then with a sprue. So this is your gate, your wax gate. And all these little pieces are going to be set on here, and then you put your sprue on here. And then that way, and you know, you're going to do your venting. You connect them all and then make vents so they come up when you're doing investment casting. And then when you turn it right side up so that the sprue is up top, the bronze flows down into this gate and then feeds into these little sprues. And the vents are for getting the air off. And then after you bust off all the investment, you can cut all that stuff off and clean it up. Well, back in their days, they didn't have welders, so they had to come up with more sophisticated type of ways of dealing with this. Like nowadays, you can leave a pin on the back of this, a bronze pin, and leave a hole, and you know, shove that through, and then weld it on the back, or you know, do a double drill through the figure and weld the pin on the back, and then retool the back of the leg for these armor plates and stuff like that. But they've set up pins. So, you know, being a sculptor, that deals with casting methods, you have to be somewhat of an engineer too. You know, marble, you can operate more like a painter and just, you know, the finished product is the finished product. You don't have to get into a lot of the science. It's just part of your craft to cut. But when you do castings, you got to really start getting into some kitchen science. And so anyway, these small pieces, this is the key. The base was one piece, the legs are a piece, and so on and so forth. He got even down to the little crucifix on the staff or the sword here. It is a sword, he just didn't have it. This is St. George, detail from the memorial to the Duke of Clarence. This is cast aluminum and ivory, if you want to look that up, circa 1896. Alfred Gilbert, he's got a lot of great pieces. This is a great book, great reference material anyway. He's known mainly for Icarus here, and the private collections, the editions, and did a lot of like public monuments. There's one right in there you go. So this one right here is one of his more famous ones. This is the memorial to Anthony Ashley Cooper, 7th Earl of Shaftesbury. Bronze and aluminum, or aluminium, as they say. So you'll probably see that if you're ever over there, or if you live over there now. So that took him 3 years to complete that piece. Anyway, moving along, I would just like to say that's how I'm going to do this. As a mold maker, I'm going to remove the wings. These will be cast separately. Remember, this is a labor of love. I will separate with a wire or a blade. I can get in here and just separate that to get a wire through there. The neck is just on a post. And let's see here, there's a lot of folds, so this can be problematic. You don't want to cut across a bunch of folds like this. Not necessarily if you don't have to. I mean, you can camouflage your seam line better when you do that. However, the cost is that there's a lot more cleanup, that you create a lot more, your circumference extends when you start dipping into hollows and such. So once the head and the arms are off of that, and this is plugged, this will be a much more simple sculpture to cast. Very easy. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 2 or 3 part. I mean, it could easily be 2 for the torso and this lower half if I put my silicone on it properly, that could come off in the mother mold. Of course, I have to make a mold for these, this, and the wings, but it's not complicated in the sense that we have to struggle with the mold to get it apart and all these pieces, and in addition to the fact that we create opportunities for flawed castings when a sculpture is more complicated, adds to the bulk weight of the mold, which when molds are very big, we have a lot of problems getting good castings, whether it's plaster or wax. Simple molds are better. It's just simple. You think it's more work, but you know, shortcuts make fools of us all, and that's going to be that. So instead of going through the process and showing you, I hope that for those of you that are at this stage, that are looking for this, understand this to be a better method. Maybe you're looking for an easier answer, and maybe you want to do a little less, like leave the head on and only take the arms off, or leave the head on and this one arm and just take this arm off. You know, so it's a little easier to come apart instead of having these, because you know, when you have a mold that you want to take off from the middle off of this arm, you got that arm in the way, and so on and so on. So that's that. And there's a couple other things I'm going to have to figure out as I go. This is not going to be the piece that she's resting on. This is part of a larger clock project. She's just sitting on a side dial that's incorporated into the whole of the clock here. So I'll deal with that when I get there, but right now this is where I'm at, and in the next video I will show how I have this cut up, so you'll see her finished and you'll see the pieces cut up and how I'm going to set those up for molding. So stick around, and this is part 1 of 2, and with any luck it'll stay 2, not 3. Okay. Alright guys, thanks for coming along. I hope this information helps you out, and get Alfred Gilbert's book, Sir Alfred Gilbert's book. You can add him to your collection if you haven't seen him before. He's a great figure sculptor from the time when I feel like figure sculpture of the modern era was at a zenith, before we started seeing the introduction of modern art. Okay. Alright, thank you so much. You guys please subscribe, like these videos, and take a look at the playlist, see if there's anything else that might tickle your fancy, and I appreciate it. You can share this on your social media posts with other people that you think might be interested. I also appreciate that. And please take a look in the description down below. See if there's any tools, books, or equipment that might benefit you in your studio. It will redirect you over to Amazon. I am an affiliate marketer with Amazon, so you will be redirected over there. And if you do want to support my channel as a type of charity for love and country and love of Jon Burns Fine Art, go ahead and see me over at paypal.com/me/JonBurnsFineArt, and you can make a donation there. We do give 10% back to our local charities, and sometimes we go above and beyond and give even more than that. So you guys take care. Appreciate you. Stay creative. Stay safe.